If you only knew the power of the dark side, it is your destiny.
Hello everyone, this is Take the Gate. It is September 9th, 2014, and I'm bringing you an article out of the International Business Times, written by Palash Gosh, and the title of the article is called Blackout: How Argentina Eliminated Africans from Its History and Conscience, and it was written on June 4th, 2013. And I'm bringing you this article for some reasons, and I'll get to those later. Well, I'll read the article, and let's go. Tens of millions of black Africans were forcibly removed from their homelands from the 16th century to the 19th century to toil on plantations and farms of the New World. The so-called Middle Passage accounted for one of the greatest forced migrations of people in human history, as well as one of the greatest tragedies of the world has ever witnessed. Millions of these helpless Africans washed ashore in Brazil. Indeed, in the present day, roughly one half of the Brazilian population traced their lineage directly to Africa. African cultures imbued Brazil permanently and profoundly in terms of music, dance, food, and in many other tangible ways. But what about Brazil's neighbor Argentina? Hundreds of thousands of Africans were brought there as well, yet the black presence in Argentina has virtually vanished from the country's records and consciousness. According to historical accounts, Africans first arrived in Argentina in the late 16th century, in the region now called Rio de Plata, which includes Buenos Aires, primarily to work in agriculture and as domestic servants. In the late 18th century and early 19th century, black Africans were numerous in parts of Argentina, accounting for up to half the population in some provinces, including Santiago del Estero, Catamarca, Salta, and Cordoba. In Buenos Aires, neighborhoods like Montserrat and San Telmo housed many black slaves, some of whom were engaged in craft making for their masters. Indeed, blacks accounted for an estimated one-third of the city's population, according to surveys in the early 1800s. Slavery was officially abolished in 1813, but the practice remained in place until about 1853. Ironically, at about this time, the black population in Argentina began to plunge. Wonder what could cause that to plunge rapidly. The historians generally attribute, that means argue, two major factors to this sudden mass disappearance of black Africans from the country: the deadly war against Paraguay from 1865 to 1870, in which thousands of blacks fought on the front lines for the Argentine military, as well as other various wars, and the onset of yellow fever in Buenos Aires in 1871. So, I'll just continue to keep reading this because you're getting the picture here. The heavy casualties suffered by black Argentines in the military combat created a huge gender gap among the African population, a circumstance that appears to have led black women to mate with other whites. Further diluting the black population, many of the black Argentines fled to neighboring Brazil and Uruguay, which were viewed as somewhat more hospitable to them. Others claim something more nefarious at work. You think? It has been argued and alleged the president of Argentina from 1868 to 1874, Domingo Faustino Sarmiento, sought to wipe out blacks from the country in a policy of covert genocide through extremely repressive policies, including possibly forced recruitment of Africans into the army and forcing blacks to remain in the neighborhoods where the disease would decimate them in the absence of adequate health care. So, back to Thomas Malthus, herding the poor into smaller areas is a breeding ground for disease. Tellingly, Sarmiento wrote in his diary in 1848, "In the United States, 4 million are black, and within 20 years will be 8 million. What is to be done with such blacks hated by the white race? Slavery is a parasite that the vegetation of English colonization has left attached to the leafy tree of freedom." By 1865, there were reportedly so few blacks left in Argentina that the government did not even bother registering African-descended people in the national census. The CIA's World Factbook currently notes that Argentina is 97% white, primarily comprising of people descended from Spanish-Italian immigrants, thereby making it the whitest nation in Latin America. But blacks did not really vanish from Argentina despite the attempts of the government to eliminate them, by partially encouraging large-scale immigration in the late 19th and 20th century from Europe and the Near East. Rather, they remained hidden and forgotten part of Argentine society. Hashim Adi, a lecturer at the Columbia University School of International and Public Affairs, wrote on Planet Afrique that in the 1950s, when the black American entertainer Josephine Baker arrived in Argentina, she asked the mixed-race Minister of Public Health, Ramon Carrillo, "Where are the Negroes?" In response, Carrillo joked, "There are only two, you and I." As in virtually all of Latin American societies where blacks mixed with whites, with local Indians, the question of race is extremely complex and conscientious. Mixed people of ancestry are often not considered black in Argentina, historically because having black ancestry was not considered proper, said Alejandro Figueiredo, an anthropologist at the Universidad Católica de Buenos Aires, according to Planet Afrique. Today, the term Negro is used loosely on anyone with slightly darker skin, but they can be descended of indigenous Indians or Middle Eastern immigrants. Africa Vive, a black empowerment group founded by Buenos Aires in the late 1990s, claimed that there are 1 million Argentines of black African descent in the country, out of a total population of about 41 million. A report in the Washington Post even suggested that 10% of Buenos Aires' population may have African blood, even if they are classified as whites by the census. People for years have accepted the idea that there are no black people in Argentina. A professor of literature, Miriam Gomez, at the University of Buenos Aires, who is part black herself, told the Post. Even the school books here accepted that fact. But where did that leave me? She explained that almost no one in Argentina with black blood in their veins would admit to it. Without a doubt, racial prejudice is great in this society and people want to believe they are white, she said. Here, if someone has a drop of white blood, they call themselves white. Gomez also told the San Francisco Chronicle that after many decades of white immigration into Argentina, people with African blood have been able to blend in and conceal their origins. Argentina's history books have been partially responsible for this misinformation regarding Africans in Argentine society, she said. Argentines say that there are no blacks here. If you're looking for traditional African people with black skin, you won't find any. African people in Argentina are of mixed heritage. Ironically, Argentina's most famous cultural gift to the world, the tango, came from African influence. The first paintings of people dancing to the tango are of African descent, Gomez added. On a broader scale, the elimination of blacks from society in the country's history and consciousness reflected the long-cherished desire of successive Argentine governments to imagine a country as all-white extension of Western, European, and Latin America. There is a silence about the participation of Afro-Argentines in history and the building of Argentina. That silence about the enslavement and poverty, said Paula Brofman, an Argentine law student and researcher, according to Planet Afrique. The denial and disdain of the Afro community shows racism of an elite that sees Africans as undeveloped, and uncivilized. Now, why am I reading this? Well, when they had the rat lines during World War II, most of the German Nazi officers were shuttled there by the Vatican as a way to escape persecution and charges by the Allied forces in Europe. And this is due to eugenics and the Nazi collectivized race-based theology that the elites today hold up as their banner, standard banner. And when you talk about genocide, you talk about eugenics. Genocide and eugenics are planned people. The elimination of people and the people getting diseases are soft kill, slow kill weapons, such as were used here, especially with war separating men from the women, and disease. They use these three as the sacrificial methodology, modus operandi, if you will, to target and eliminate certain groups of people. Now, if you look at the Ebola outbreak in Africa and the vast natural resources that Africa possesses, one has to ask yourself, why are they ignoring the virus that is breeding in one of the most poor parts of the world? And you're left with one specific conclusion, that they are exacerbating the outbreak so that Europe can come in, wipe out the population without resistance, and take the riches for themselves. This was defined and very clear in a book called Guns, Germs, and Steel. So this is the plan. Genocide. That was being employed, and it's written by Jared Diamond. He is a historian, I believe, but this was the plan that was used, and I can't show you this picture, but you can find it on YouTube. The planned execution and elimination of an entire race, group of people deemed unfit, such as the Nazis would call the Jewish population. The T4 action teams that would round up the disabled as unfit people. And I'm here to tell you, today, no one's unfit. And that's the long and short of it. This is Take the Gate. Please comment, rate, and subscribe. Thank you for watching.